Okay, so we have worked with solving a one-step addition and solving a one-step multiplication. Now we are going to work with solving a two-step equation. And what that means is when there's addition and multiplication both in the problem, and you have to undo both. For example, 2x plus 5 equals 15. We'll just make it an easy one. So this is two steps because step 1, you will have to get rid of the addition, and step 2, you will have to get rid of the multiplication. Now we know how to do both of these things. We know that in order to get rid of the addition, we use the inverse of the addition, and we go through the process, and then in order to get rid of the multiplication, we use the inverse of multiplication. So we're going to go through those steps again. The idea of use the inverse, balance the scale, because whatever you do to one side, you do have to do to the other. And then, of course, look in the mirror or use the identity. Okay, and then we're going to loop. But we will do that fourth step of checking our answer when we are all done. Now, the question is, which one do we get rid of first? Do we undo addition first, or do we undo the multiplication first? Well, in order to answer that question, let's go back to order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, we do order of operations to do a problem, and we have to follow this order, first, second, third, and fourth. Remember, when we are solving an equation, we are actually undoing a problem. We're undoing it. It's a working backwards situation. And so if we're working backwards, we have to do the order of operations in reverse, which means when doing a problem, we go this way, but when undoing a problem, we go that way. So we have to undo any addition or subtraction first, which for us will always be addition because we will always change our subtraction to addition. So addition is always the first thing you undo. And then we will worry about any multiplication. And when we get further into solving like 3 steps in bigger equations, then we would worry about the top 2. But because you're doing order of operations in reverse, you have to undo addition first, undo multiplication second. So we will draw our balance scale. Okay, I need to undo addition. I'm going to follow these steps. I'm adding 5, so I'm going to use the inverse. The inverse of addition is adding the opposite. So I'm going to add -5. That will give me 0. Drop what I have left. I have plus, and I don't have just x left. I have 2x left. So I'm going to drop that entire thing 2x. Now I have to balance the scale, so I have to add -5 to this side. 15 plus -5 is 10. 2x looks in the mirror, 2x plus 0 is 2x. And I still have 10 on that side. So I've undone the addition, I've used the inverse, balance the scale, look in the mirror. And now I'm down to what looks like a one-step multiplication. I'm going to do my first step of undoing addition. I'm now going to do my second step of undoing multiplication. So I'm going to loop back in these steps. I got to here, look in the mirror, I'm going to loop back now for my second step, and I'm going to use the inverse. It's multiplication now. The inverse of multiplication is multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 1/2. 2 times 1/2 is 1. Drop my times x that I haven't used. I'm going to balance the scale and multiply this side by 1/2. 10 times 1/2 is 5. Now I'm going to look in the mirror. X times 1 is x. 5 is all I have on this side, so my answer is 5. X equals 5. And now I'll do my fourth step of checking the answer. 2 times 5 plus 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. So I know that my answer is correct. So a two-step is just taking the ideas of what we know about it, one-step addition and a one-step multiplication. And we have 2 steps to do, those 2 steps. Let's do another one. Now this one looks a little different. Okay, we have 10 minus 3x equals -2. And we are used to the x kind of being on the left and the number being on the right. So we can switch the order, but we can't switch the order right now. We cannot switch the order until we change this problem to addition. You cannot switch the order while it is still subtraction. So I'm going to make that plus a negative. So So what I really have is 10 plus negative 3x equals negative 2. Now I can switch the order if you want to. You don't have to, but some of us like the variable on the left. Negative 3x plus 10 equals negative 2. Okay, draw my balance scale. Remember, order of operations in reverse, I have to undo my addition first. So I'm going to undo the 10 by adding the opposite, using the inverse. The opposite of 10 is negative 10. That gives me 0. Drop what I have left is the negative 3x plus. Balance my scale, I add negative 10 over here. Negative 2 plus negative 10 is negative 12. Negative 3x looks in the mirror, or negative 3x plus 0 is negative 3x, and I still have negative 12 over here. So I used the inverse, balanced the scale, and looked in the mirror. Use the identity. Now I have to go through 3 steps again for the multiplication. Use the inverse. The inverse for multiplication is reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 1/3. That will give me 1 times x. Balance the scale, multiply by negative 1/3 over here. Negative times a negative will give me a positive, which is going to be a positive 4. Look in the mirror, x times 1 is x. This is 4. So there's my answer, and now I can check. 10 plus negative 3 times 4. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and negative 12 plus 10 is negative 2, so I am correct. And that is how you do a 2-step equation.